What's up, guys? Let's do some EdgePro sharpening, alright? I got a cold steel kudu. Been using this knife for a long time. I've thinned it a lot. It's pretty much a practice sharpening knife. I just wanted to go over some tricks with the EdgePro. Well, not really tricks, but some hints of advice, the way I kind of do my knives. Now, if you notice, if you're starting with a knife that had a factory edge done by a grinder, generally they have pretty straight V grinds, not real convex. If you freehand sharpen a knife, unless you're really, really good, you're going to get a slightly convex edge. For example, this knife, you can just tell by the way the light glimmers on it that this is a convex knife from freehand. Doing a knife that's been done slightly convex freehand takes much longer to grind down than a knife either done by another system or done by a grinder, just because you have to grind that convex shape flat on the stone. Okay, I'm going to be using the stock stones. I'm going to leave the shaft and glass down, show you some tricks of the trade, or the way I do things here. I'm going to go for 220, may or may not use a 400, depends how this goes. 600 always, 1000 always, and then depending on how sharp it is, if I feel like it, maybe I'll go over the polishing tips. Alright, gotta have the chef knives to go drill collar. Let me see if I can move this closer into the camera here. Gotta have that drill collar, it's just awesome. Alright. Should zoom out. Having trouble getting a good angle here. Now, something to note on the EdgePro, and I talked about this in the previous video, is I don't know if you can see, but on the machine itself, I'm going to move the camera. If you notice this pivot right here, as I push down, do you see how this moves up? See how you have to have a certain amount of pressure to keep that up? I'll go over that later. There's some things you have to look out for on this pivot to make sure you don't multi-facet your bevels. Okay? Where do we want to be here? I'll bring this. In fact, I'm going to bring this a little bit forward. I'm going to move the camera again. Sorry about this, guys. There. Just want you to be able to see sort of what I'm doing. Alright, so first things first. Let's go ahead and set the blade table. This knife is pretty straight right across, not much you need to do. This knife I'm really not going to move it around too much, so generally you'd start with the tip over here and you'd bring the table up just till the other side covers. And that's pretty good. I think I will just go ahead and do that. Now this is a stiff knife. You really don't need to move this knife. I may move it just a little bit to get the tip. We'll see what happens. I'm not going to tape the blade because obviously I don't care about it. What I will do, however, as you always should, I'm going to go ahead and mark my bevel. Okay, I'm going to mark our bevel here. Roughly. Now this knife has a really wide bevel because I've done a lot of blade thinning and other stuff. It's laid back pretty far. I generally only mark the bevel on one side, and once I hit it, I'll monitor both sides of the knife, see where the bevel's more narrow, and I'll try to kind of shuffle them up and fix it kind of as I go. Okay, I'm going to set the knife. You know, we're going to put our own angle on this knife. I'm going to set it for 21, 20. I'm going to set it for about 19 and a half, which is like maybe 1.5 skips below the yellow. I'm going to start with our 220 grit stone. Shaft and glass stones are nice, but I do like the stock stones too. I think the stock stones are great. Alright, we're all tightened up here. First couple strokes. Let's see where we are hitting the edge. Alright. And as you can see, we're actually hitting the edge way out at the tip. Oops, shit, that's not what I meant to say. We're hitting the edge right out, way out at the apex. So you can tell this knife is ground way farther back than even 19 degrees. But I want to thicken this edge up. I'm going to drop it down maybe another degree, half a degree. Let's see where we're landing now. You know, I'm just going to go with this. So that's where we are now. That's what I just got. And we're going to go ahead and we're essentially reprofiling this knife with the 220. Here's another good hint of advice. Go pick up one of these. This is a Flowmaster. Great for water stones. Great for EdgePro stones. It's just a great way to get water out and on the table. Alright. It's nice to have a big sharpening basin like this too, though. So, let's start grinding. I'm just going to go with this angle. Suction cups aren't sticking down, too wet. And actually, I'm going to bring the knife over just a bit. Okay. Zoom in a little bit, I guess. Alright, you can see the load up on the stone. We'll go ahead and blast that right off. Now we're going to have a burr right away. Here's what I've done. So if you look closely, you can see that I've started to generate a scratch pattern. But you can still see the polish behind it. Got a huge, massive burr across the knife. Again, this is just a practice thing. It's not a knife I care about. You know, yes, it looks ugly right now, but it's not a problem. I'm just going to try to put an even bevel, show you what we can do. Okay. Other side of the knife. Now, this is 4116 Krupp steel. And honestly, the stock EdgePro stones have no problem grinding this. It's a pretty soft, pretty simple alloy. It's German Krupp steel, they call it, 4116 Krupp. I like it. I think it's a good steel. It's definitely more of a budget steel, but honestly, it's like Aus 8, but a little bit softer. And you can make small strokes off the tip, just be very careful. Okay. Alright. So, this was our first side. And now on the flip side, you can see that we have kind of a similar circumstance going on. Big burr, both sides. Obviously we've apexed. So now we've essentially ground in a new edge. And that's all the time it took. It didn't take much time at all. Alright. Now, I'm examining the edge a little, seeing if I want to try to adjust anything. I'm actually noticing that it's a little, the bevel's a little thin on this side and a little more narrow over here, so I'm going to grind on this area of the knife just a little bit more to kind of equalize it. And unfortunately the knife is actually rocking, because I do have up and down play, so that is going to screw us up, but it shouldn't be too bad. Alright, that's pretty much it for the 220, guys. I mean, there's not much more that needs to be done. Alright, so before we switch stones, first of all I'm going to come in and just rinse this stone down a bit. Before we switch, we're going to want to set up our chef knives to go, what's it called, drill stop collar. Come on, fingernails are freshly cut, it's hard to grab things off flat surface. So we got our Allen key. Now, we're going to loosen the drill collar. This is very important. This is the one upgrade you really, really need, or the one aftermarket part actually you really need for the EdgePro. Is this drill collar. I mean, it saves so much time. So we take our stone, put it on here, we bring the drill collar right up to the stone in contact with the pivot, and we're essentially measuring that stone height with this collar. Okay, make sure it's all the way up there. Now we're going to tighten that down. Alright, now we have a measured angle guide, essentially, right down there. So, when we go ahead and move over to, let's see, do I want to use the 400 grit stone? I'm going to skip the 400 just for the sake of the video. So, moving on to our dark brown 600 grit stone. Okay, zoom back in. These stones are freshly lapped too, which is nice. Definitely get the leveling kit. I find with flattening the stones with the silicon carbide leveling kit, oops, I almost forgot to adjust my angle. If you just use like a DMT extra coarse plate, it's not coarse enough. EdgePro stones are very coarse. And people say this 600 grit is closer to like a regular 1000. It's not. This is a very coarse stone, they all are. So we're going to adjust our angle. I'm going to slip this stone in here, and as you can see, maybe if I zoom out, there's a lot of space in here. The stone is fitting in here no problem. So, holding my fingers under the drill collar just in case it moves, I'm going to undo the pivot, and now it's come down about half a degree almost in stone height. So we've now adjusted for stone height from the 220. And that's important because a lot of people just don't think about this, who, you know, the EdgePro manual doesn't talk about adjusting for stone height. I don't know why that is, but it just doesn't. Okay? Normally, if you really wanted to make your knife perfect, you'd remark the edge just to make absolute sure that you're hitting the bevel perfect, even with this adjustment, but we're just going to go. Alright, 600 grit. Once you've laid in a 220 for your core stone and set your bevel, technically everything else after that is just considered polishing. Alright. 600 grit stone does take a lot of water. Okay, you got a burr on the front half of the knife. Need to work the back of it some more. Some more water going. This sprayer I have was only like $5 or something, and it sprays for days with a couple pumps. It's amazing. Gotta work the back end. Right now I'm using the entire, almost the whole length of the stone. I'll come back to that later. Okay, that should have been enough. Let's see, burr, burr, burr. Yep, got a consistent burr across the knife. Got to clean off the slurry from the stone. These stones do not work with slurry like, you know, traditional water stones do. So just clean the slurry off. You don't need it. And let's see, so here is our 220 scratch pattern. Come on, camera, focus. Here's what 220 was. And here's what we just laid in. That's our 600. Okay. Now remember, everything I'm doing here is very rushed, and it's not going to be perfect. I'm just trying to shoot a video. I always screw up my sharpening videos. That's why I don't have any. But here we go. Do it. Checking for a burr. Got it. Looking at how even the bevels are. It's coming along. Polish is coming up. Alright, so this knife has been polished up to 600 grit. Honestly, if I wanted to, I could finish on the 600 grit stone and get a nice toothy kitchen edge. So here's an important step. Try this. Every once in a while, especially if you're doing a lot of grinding, turn your stone over. It helps the wear out so much. It really, really does. It's worth doing. So, What I'm going to do is I'm going to do some light strokes now to kind of bring the burr to a minimum. Okay, now here's where this pivot play comes in, because if you see right here, the pivot's, well, you're not really seeing that, but right there the pivot's up, right here the pivot's down. As you go farther in, as I displayed in one of my videos, when the stone arm's out here, it's easier to keep the pivot under full tension. The farther up you go, it's harder. And when you're doing those light finishing strokes, the pivot's not under tension the whole time. You got to watch that. So when you're doing finishing strokes, only use the very front of the stone, like so. Oops. These are just light strokes. Okay, trying to reduce that burr as much as possible. Light, short strokes. And I talked to Ben about this through email, and he confirmed, you know, the whole thing with the pivot issue. Honestly, if you're having real trouble with the pivots, I'm sure Ben, did I say Mark earlier? No, I think I said Ben. Ben will do whatever he can do for you. You know, I always thought, I was like, damn, should I have bought the Wicked Edge? Well, the thing is with the EdgePro is there's so many stone options. It's so easy to mount your own stones. And the customer service is great. Ben literally treats his customers as if you're his only customer. He answers emails on the weekends. He does whatever he can to help you. He's a wonderful guy, Ben Dale. I love his system. Alright, we're starting to get a pretty good edge for just a 2-stone hone. It's coming. It's coming up here. It is really coming along. This system is just so easy to get a good edge. Yeah, it's a little less entertaining than a freehand sharpening, but it is what it is. All right, we're at 600. Now there's still the burr, but it's been minimized. Let's see if we can cut paper at this point. Should be able to cut paper just fine. Okay. Oh yeah, we're cutting paper. 2 stones. 2 stones. So this paper has little perforations on top that I didn't notice. That's why it's not cutting well. Alright. So you still got some burr out at the tip. If I really wanted to finish, I would spend a long time on this stone at that grit, but we're moving up to 1,000. Alright. So with 2 stones, you can get a very, very good edge. You can actually get a shaving sharp edge if you want with 2 stones. And if I would have taken the step with the 400, it would have been even more refined. Alright, so 1,000. Again, we're going to use the drill collar. We're going to adjust for our stone height. In this case, the pivot's going back up a bit because the stone is a little less used than that 600. Now this 1,000 is pretty coarse still, even the 1K. Definitely coarser than my Shapton 1Ks. Shapton 1K leaves a nice polish. This is still leaves a pretty hazy finish. And I'm not putting down bent stones, I'm just telling it like it is. I'm going to use shorter strokes. Okay. Let's zoom in a little. Might as well zoom in on what I'm doing, right? Alright, that's one side. Go ahead and blast it off. I'm really just doing light polishing strokes at this point. Not really grinding real hard. So you don't go much farther than that if you don't want pivot play. Pivot is still fully under tension. but I'm using a little extra force right now because I'm trying to bring it up to 1,000. Okay. Alright. Again, we're gonna rinse the stone off. Check for burr. Zoom back out. Okay. Let's do some more. Aftermarket stones are nice, but really, these stones are great, too. I have no problems with stock stones. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love my EdgePro Shapton glass stones. I also just love my, Shapton glass bench stones. Love Shapton products. But, there's really nothing wrong with these alumina oxide stones. They're kind of like a kingstone, alumina oxide, if you think about it. Alright, now we're really doing light strokes. Just trying to bring the burr to a minimum now. You know, I never used to think so, but really, these stones do benefit from a short soak. They load up a lot less if they've been soaked. I would try that next time. When you're doing these light half strokes, move along the knife too with it. Alright, I think we're about done on the 1,000 grit here. Alright, still have a bit of a burr. Now I'm going to go ultra light strokes. Barely grind at all, just to see if I can't chop the burr off and use the knife at 1,000 grit. No pressure at all. But if you want to do these no pressure at all strokes, you have to use the back of the stone. Up here, you're going to be at a different angle, no pressure. Listen to the sound as I touch the pivot. Ready? Touching it with my thumb. Listen to the sound as I touch the pivot. Ready? Hear that? Now when the stone's back here, listen to the sound. Nothing. Up here? Okay, so that's why. That is probably one of the best tips I could give you for using the EdgePro, is that right there. Is to just be wary of that. Alright, let's see where we're at. Oh, the burr is pretty small, and it is cleaning up. So, a couple more strokes over here, we'll be done. Alright, how's that wire edge? Pretty good. This would be a great kitchen knife edge, where it is right here. Let's take a look at it. So here is the quality of a 1,000 grit edge. That is your scratch pattern off it. Not real bright. Right? Really, you're not going to see much of polish without the tapes. By the way, I love EdgePro polishing tapes. I don't know what problem everyone has with them. I think the main problem is you need to buy the glass blanks. Do not use anything but the glass blanks. Alright, well that's pretty much it. The drill stop collar is extremely important. Turning your stones end for end is pretty important. Well, since I am going to be finishing with this 1000 grit stone, I'm going to ever so slightly raise the pivot, like just a tiny bit. Like that. And these last few strokes are going to hopefully just chop the burr right off. And just barely make sure that the edge is fully apexed. That should do it. When you're getting towards finishing, feel both sides to see which way the edge is pushed. Yeah, the edge feels smooth and pretty sharp. Now, if you continue to do those low finishing strokes, you could get this edge very well finished. But again, I'm going quick. Paper test. I'm going to find some paper without perforations. This is really thick. Crap, guys, I don't have any good paper here. This paper is all thick, perforated, and folded. These are all bills. Shoot. Sorry, guys. Oh, this paper is super thick. And it's got a big fold, but should be cutting. Yeah, it's just fine. I mean, that's a perfect edge for... If you're using a pocket knife or a European-style kitchen knife, you don't need anything sharper than that, I'm telling you right now. You could strap this knife. Anyway, yeah, you can strap this knife and get it really done. Anyway, guys, so remember that whole pivot bounce thing. You gotta keep that pivot under tension however you can. And just be wary of it. Be really wary of that pivot. Alright. Okay, so I've been me. This is Max. A little quick EdgePro demonstration with a quality tip for you. Have a good one, guys. See ya.